So he came to me about 8 months ago, I think, right?
Yeah.
8 months ago with the goal to compete. I think it was in July, I think the initial show was, and then it got pushed all the way back to October. And it, like, we would have been prepared for the show in July, but I think it was a blessing in disguise that it got pushed back to October. It gave us a lot of time to continuously cut. We took it really slow. We took the very sustainable approach to everything, and it worked out amazing. He's more than prepared for stage. I wouldn't change a single thing about our approach thus far. He looks absolutely peeled. He's more than ready, and he's gonna freaking crush it. I'm proud of this guy. He put in a lot of work. I don't think he missed a freaking macro in 8 months of prep. So he's more than ready.
Classic Physique overall champion for Summer Straight Classic 2. Number 7, Alan.
Believe it, man.
Overall,
dude, were you freaking out?
I was freaking out.
I'm honestly speechless about his performance and just how he came in. His compliance, I mean, just unfucking believable.
I almost started calling my eyes out.
Your dog, I was like, what's my dad doing?
Congratulations to you too.
I appreciate it. He did all the work.
Oh my God, this is so amazing.
He's like, thanks for holding the lamp, yo.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you exactly how I went through my first bodybuilding prep in one. I'm going to talk about my journey from going to 230 pounds down to 170 pounds, which is 60 pounds total lost throughout the last 8 months. And what I basically want you to get out of this is to understand what not to do during your prep, what to do during your prep, and how to make sure that your prep is successful. So stay tuned. If you're in a spot right now where you want to lose the next 20 to 60 pounds, you're going to get a lot out of this video. And if you're someone who wants to prep for a bodybuilding show, you're also going to get a lot out of this video. I want to start off this video by telling you my exact starting point for this prep because it's going to relate to where you might be right now. So I was 230 pounds, roughly about 20-ish% body fat at the very start of my prep. As you can see with the pictures that I'm overlaying on the screen right now, my face was a lot bigger, it was a lot rounder, and then also I was training a lot differently than I would normally for a bodybuilding show. I was doing things a lot more power builder type. I was lifting a lot heavier, and my starting macros for this prep actually wasn't too high. I was starting at around 240 grams of carbs. I was starting at 215 grams of protein and starting my prep at 60 grams of fat. My starting cardio was about 50 minutes a week just to start off, okay? So that is 15 minutes a week, not 15-minute sessions. And my workout split for the start of prep was 6 days a week, push, pull, legs, repeat, and then I took off on Sunday. Now that you understand where I started on prep, let's get into how things changed during prep. My cardio relatively stayed the same for the first couple months of prep. And a very common theme for me was I actually kept things exactly the same for the majority of prep. I would say a solid 2 to 4 months, things did not change whatsoever. My weight continuously went down gradually over time. My workouts didn't really change, my cardio didn't really change, my routine didn't really change. It was just a matter of continuously implementing things over time. It wasn't until my last couple months of prep where I really started to hammer down the cardio and I really started to restrict food intake. But right before we started to get to the nitty gritty of prep and we started to get to the last couple months, essentially what we did is we increased cardio, but right before that, we actually implemented high carb refeed days and we actually did diet breaks, which are two things that I thought my prep did differently than most people, which is actually why I feel like I personally came out on top in the end and why I feel like I preserved a lot more muscle mass and my metabolism wasn't as suppressed as it would have been if we did not take refeed days and diet breaks seriously. Another thing that changed during prep is the amount of times that I was actually working out a week. I went from working out 6 days a week down to 5 days a week down to 4 days a week. And this was simply because my energy levels were super low, calories were decreasing over time, and this is something else that does come with prep that I highly advise people look into, is actually changing the way that they do things so that it's more sustainable for you. There was a time in prep where my energy levels were super low. I could not keep up with the 6-day-a-week workout routine on top of doing cardio every single day for about 45 minutes during the end of prep. So what I thought would best, and I actually consulted my coach about this, we started to do a 4 to 5 day workout routine instead of a 6-day-a-week workout routine in order to give myself more energy for those long cardio sessions. At that point in prep, cardio is pretty crucial because you're losing weight based off of how many calories you're consuming and how many calories you're burning. Towards the end of prep, you definitely don't want to be skipping out on cardio or anything like that. You want to be doing what you can to preserve muscle mass, and you want to be making sure that you give your cardio sessions your all at that point in time with limited amounts of energy. So I ended up taking first place in my show for the Classic Physique division for Summer Shredding 2020, and this show was originally supposed to be in July. It ended up getting pushed back several months, which extended my prep to about 8 months worth of prep. And it honestly ended up being something that helped me and my coach prepare better for this show. There were about 25 to 30 guys competing at this event. I ended up winning my class out of 4 people, that was it, and then the 4 overalls at the end, okay? So I believe every class had about 4 to 5 people in it, and some classes were bigger than others, but overall it was pretty general, and it was based off of height. Right now I want to get into the mistakes that you should be avoiding during your first prep. I personally feel like my first prep absolutely went the best that it possibly could have gone. My metabolism wasn't too damaged. I wasn't doing that much cardio given the circumstances. I wasn't really into poverty macros yet. I wasn't starving myself. Overall, I felt like the prep was the most sustainable prep I could have gotten, and I want to go over some basic things that you should consider when you're losing about 20 to 60 pounds in that big weight loss goal. And I also want to go over some things that you should consider if you're doing your first show. The first mistake you want to avoid is doing too much cardio too soon. The way that it works is that when you're doing cardio, your body's going to be adapting to that amount of cardio that you're doing, right? And if you start off cardio too high, you're going to have to continue that for the majority of your prep. Now, whether you're doing a 3-month prep, a 4-month prep, a 5-month prep, whatever you decide to do, you need to understand that you need to have enough time, which leads me into number 2. Be sure that you don't start cardio too soon, and be sure that you don't have too little time to prepare for this show. And the reason why is because you want to make sure that if anything goes wrong, you have enough time to make up for it. That's an important thing. The last thing you want to do is rush into a show, because not only is that gonna, hurt your placings, but it's gonna lower your muscle mass, it's going to make things more unsustainable for you, which will ultimately set you up for a very bad post-show, which I'll get into in a second. The third thing that you do not want to do is you do not want to start your calories too low. Already going to be hard as it is, dialing in nutrition, dialing in cardio, dialing in your training sessions. You're gonna have a lot on your plate. If you start the calories too low, basically what you'll end up doing is you'll shoot yourself in the foot, because you will only be going lower from there. All right, during prep, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna be ending with calories a lot lower than when you started. And essentially what that's going to do is that if you start low, you're only gonna go lower from there. So if you start as high as you possibly can and you go lower, you'll probably still end up higher than if you start too low and you just go down from there. The fourth thing that you wanna do goes and ties into number 2, which is you don't wanna cut calories too aggressively, which is what most people do when they don't give themselves enough time. If you start ending up cutting calories aggressively, most of the time those calories are going to be coming from your fats and carbs, okay? And if you're cutting those things out aggressively before your show, not only is that going to hurt the amount of muscle mass you come into your show with, but it's also going to be hurting your hormone function. Your metabolism is going to be adapting to a lot lower calories, and you're going to come into your show looking flat and not full and muscular like you need to be looking when you're doing this. The next mistake I want to talk about that you should really take into consideration: do not go into your first show without hiring a posing coach. I personally think that I would have came in like 3rd or 4th place if my posing was not a little bit better than it would have without a posing coach. I personally did mine over FaceTime, but I highly recommend if you have accessibility to one in person, it's going to be a lot easier for you to understand how to contract each muscle, how to make yourself look bigger on stage. And honestly, when I stepped on stage next to these guys, I was lighter by about 25 pounds. I talked to some of the competitors afterwards and beforehand, and a lot of those guys that were standing next to me in the overall were about in the 190s area, around the 200 mark. I was 170, 175, so I was the lightest one on stage. The next thing that I would really prioritize is not getting a bad coach, and this is easier said than done. But when you are hiring a coach, you should really look and do your due diligence as to who you're going to hire. Make sure that they are science-based and make sure that they're up to date on the latest research going into fitness and nutrition. I actually made the mistake of reaching out to a coach that I thought would give me more science-backed things, but a lot of his practices were geared towards people that were enhanced athletes. And I was personally going into my first show non-enhanced. I was doing it fully natural, no PEDs or anything like that. And this was a show that was not tested or anything, but I chose to go into this show as my first show, like natural 100%. And I saw the methods that he was kind of giving to me and all that stuff when I first started with him, and I decided to pull away from that coach and pick another coach that was more science-based and it was going to be appealing to a natural athlete. And they do train differently, okay? Like building muscle, you know, kind of works the same way with progressive overload and all that stuff. But when you're introducing steroids and PEDs and all that type of stuff, I would highly recommend gearing the coach that you pick towards which one you're going to be going for, okay? Some coaches are more experienced with that stuff, some coaches are not, and you have to do your due diligence and really ask those hard questions up front with the coach that you decide to work with. The last thing that you should really be prioritizing is sleep and water intake during your prep. I would fluctuate anywhere from 3 all the way up to 4 to 5 pounds depending on if I got crappy sleep and depending if I got good sleep. And the research clearly shows that if you're getting more sleep, not only will you actually preserve more muscle mass, but you will be able to function better overall in your workouts, and it'll just help regulate your weigh-ins. When you go ahead and do a show and you're constantly looking at that number on the scale, you're looking at how you look every day and you're in single-digit body fat, one shitty night of sleep can make you look night and day different, and it really does get to your head. So I always recommend controlling as many variables as you possibly can when you're going ahead and competing, because that's really going to make or break whether or not you have an easier prep rather than a harder prep. There's going to be harder aspects to it, but why make it more difficult and mentally straining for yourself? Right before I wrap up this video, I do want to say that there is a huge mental game after the show. You have just stepped on stage, probably the leanest that you've ever been in your life. You know, you don't really have an excuse to get to single-digit body fat and get that lean and just go balls to the walls if you're not competing for a show. Most likely you've just gone balls to the walls for the last several months, and now all you want to do is eat whatever the hell you want, right? And I just want to give you my personal opinion on this. A lot of coaches approach this differently, and they either don't do a reverse phase or they do a reverse phase, and some coaches do recovery phases. The first 2 to 3 weeks, I was doing very well with the reverse diet. I was slowly increasing calories as they went up. But as you may or may not know, when you are going into that really heavy restriction phase in the last several weeks of the diet, you're not really doing your hormones any favors. When you finish that show, not only are you gonna be more hungry, but even if you eat more, you will not be satisfied because your hormones are all out of whack. It's going to take several months for those hormones to kind of get back to normal levels and start to actually feel full again. Like right now, we're 2 months past post-show. I'm still struggling with getting my appetite back. So what I would really advise to you is to really talk to your coach or whoever you plan on working with during this and make sure you have a strategy for the post-show, okay? Maybe enjoy yourself for 1 to 2 days max, but as most of you may or may not know, most people can lose 20 to 30 pounds, but the rebound is very fast, okay? So you wanna make sure that you have a strategy afterwards and either do a reverse diet or a recovery diet, recovering your metabolism and so on and so forth. You wanna make sure that these things are prioritized because trust me, post-show phase where you're just starving but you know you can't eat all the food in the world because you don't wanna gain the weight back and you don't want to see yourself a little fluffier in the mirror every single day after the show, trust me, that is a mental aspect of this whole competition thing that absolutely no one can prepare you for. And I thought that I was gonna be able to handle it a lot better than I did, and I was proven wrong, like 100%. I did really well 2 to 3 weeks after the show. There were times where I fell off. There were times where I found myself like binging 1 night a week or something like that, and I had to make up for it and, you know, work hard to get the water weight off, the extra fat off and all that stuff. And right now I'm in a really good spot 2 months after. So this is something that's really not talked about too much, but there are many of competitors out there who gain 20 to 30 pounds easy the weekend after their show, and it's something that really messes with your headspace. If you're someone who wants to do your first competition, I hope this video was a super helpful tool for you. Please do me a huge favor for the YouTube algorithm. They love it when people smash the like button, so I would really appreciate it if you did that for me. It would really mean a lot, and I will talk to you guys on the next one. Make sure you guys subscribe for new content being uploaded to the channel, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.